Hey, Pokedad Fan Club, it's me, Pokedad, and today I'm coming to you with a new deck profile. I know I haven't done deck profiles in a while. I haven't really done anything on the channel in a while. But today I want to talk to you a little bit about a deck that I placed third at a league challenge, and this was earlier in the season. It was when the season was just starting. Karen hadn't come out yet, but it was still a very big Garbodor and the Megas, and now we've kind of seen Garbodor. It's still played some, but now a lot of the Mega decks are going without Garbodor, choosing to play Hex Maniac, and this deck, right in the thick of all of that, I decided to play it, and I did very, very well with it, and I really believe it's underrated. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about it. I'm not going to go into the big, long deck profiles that I'm used to do. I'm just going to spend a few moments on the highlights, talking about the attackers, talking about a few of the cards, but most of the supporters you know already, and we may touch base on a couple key ones, but we won't really spend a lot of time on it. So let's talk about Vespiquen. Vespiquen has seen a lot of play. It's been with Night March, it's been with Vileplume, um, it's been with Flareon. So the idea is Be Revenge does 20 damage plus 10 damage for every Pokemon in your discard pile. And so Vespiquen in this deck is more of our cleanup hitter. We want to try to end the game with Vespiquen. And so as the game progresses and our Yanmega breaks get knocked out, our Vespiquens get pumped up, and oftentimes we can get them strong enough where they're taking out a Mega. They can hit 220 easily by the end of the game. So that's kind of the idea, is Vespiquen's going to be our cleanup hitter. Now, one thing about this deck is if it ever does dead draw, and it's a very consistent deck, but every deck eventually does dead draw. One option we do have is that we have Vespiquen's Intelligence Gathering. We can draw our hand back up to 6 cards if we, get low. Don't necessarily like to do that, but that is an option for us if we kind of get stuck in the game. Our other main attacker is Yanmega and Yanmega Break. Yanmega has this ability, Sonic Vision, that if you have exactly 4 cards in your hand, you don't have to pay any energy, and you can do the attacks without any energy. This really is useful for us because it allows us to begin to get tempos against our opponent very quickly. If we go second, there's a very good chance that we can hit for 120 on turn 1, and that's going to 2-hit KO just about every Mega, or 2-hit KO every EX, except, well, it would even take out, well, it wouldn't take out Wailord, well, in 1 hit, but it would still 2-hit Wailord. So Yanmega with Assault Boom, it does 50 damage, and then if there's a tool attached, it does an additional 70. Now the problem is 50 isn't very much, so but there's a lot of tools. There's Spirit Links, there's Float Stones in the format, a lot of tools going on right now in the format. So Yanmega really comes in handy because you can hit for that 120 more times than not. However, because we know that we do have the potential, we don't want to just hit for 50 if we can help it. We can evolve into Yanmega Break. Gives us an HP buff, so we're up to 140, which isn't always easy to KO with 1 hit, especially Megas. I don't know if you noticed, but most Megas, save for Mega Rayquaza and a few others, most Megas are only hitting in the 110 to 120 range. Even if you think about Mega Mewtwo, usually it's hitting right around 130, unless it's attacking something that has a lot of energy. This thing doesn't have any energy on it, so Mega Mewtwo is probably only going to hit for 130 unless they really want to load up 5 energies on it. So this can stay in the game, hang for a while against even Mega Mewtwo. Alright, so Barrier Break does 100 damage, and this attack isn't affected by weakness, resistance, or any effects. So basically, Glaceon doesn't stop us because we can Barrier Break through Glaceon. That's really probably the only situation we're going to see where we're going to need it in this deck. There may be others, but we don't have to worry about Glaceon. We can fight through Glaceon. So anyway, barrier break does 100 damage, and that's a good clean 100. There's no weakness or resistance on it, so you get a 100 on the opponent. And that combined with 120 hits for 220, so we can knock out most things with 2 shots from Yanmega Break. Alright, so let's talk about some of our supporters. We play 3 of these clef keys. Wonderlock. Now, because megas are pretty prominent, clef key can come in handy to help us save a turn with a mega, where if they try to hit us, it won't hurt us. So Wonderlock can come in really handy for us with this ability. However, if we're not playing a mega deck, we can still use it to get it in the discard pile by chaining onto an unknown and then farewell lettering, or you can chain onto a clef key who then chains onto an unknown and then farewell letters, and we can get these Pokemon in the discard pile even faster. And so we play 4 unknown, and unknown really is a very very strong card in this deck for a couple reasons. First of all, it can help dead drawing in the early game. So you can, if you have a level ball, you can level ball. Let's say we don't have a forest, we can level ball for one of these guys. Or if we're not looking, we don't have a draw supporter or something, we can level ball for at least gives us a card and a couple outs to try to work with. Also at the end game, comes in very handy because if they end us down to a small amount, we can keep these on the bench and then farewell letter them later. Or if we draw into an Ultra Ball, we can have the farewell letter available to us. So unknown, very useful in this deck for draw. It's basically an extra 4 free cards that we get to draw from it. And this deck actually goes very fast. You'll play through it very quickly, and a lot of times you got to be careful not to deck out. Shaman, 2 Shamans for setup to draw support. Some people use Auxiliary, but I find that it's better just to use Shaman. You have a better, you get less chance of dead drawing early, and that's the key thing, is if we can get through that early couple phases where we're getting Pokemon set up, then the end game comes a lot easier for us. Key thing is we're playing 4 forested giant plants, so we can get the Yanmega and the Vespiquen set up on turn 1 and be hitting for, like I said, the 100 to 120 on turn 1. So that's kind of important. As far as our energy, we just play 4 DCEs since Yanmega Break's attacking for free. Vespiquen and Shaman are really the only Pokemon that need the double colorless. One thing I should point out is I don't play any switching cards in this deck. With Yanmega having free treat and Vespiquen having free retreat, and Shaman being able to sky return, the only time we ever get stuck is if we start with a clef gear and unknown, or if they Lysander one of those up, which is very rare that they Lysander because they're trying to get rid of the threats. I know we use one of the double colorless to get them back to the bench. That's really the only thing we need to do. We don't need float stones, we don't need escape ropes, we don't need switches, we don't need Olympia in this deck, because we can just use these energies. We're most likely not going to need 4 to attack with Vespiquen, and we also play 1 special charge anyway. So we're going to get the energies back if we need them. So just you attach the energy. If you start clef gear unknown, just attach the energy to them and retreat them, and then you'll be fine. And most likely we want to be starting with an attack with Yanmega anyway, so we won't need the energy right away anyway. Play 1 Revitalizer, just because sometimes you need a key card. You have to discard stuff or Sycamore some pieces away, and this Revitalizer can come in handy because if you get a Yama but you had to Sycamore, a Yanmega, and Yanmega Break, you can just grab them back, put the forest up, and put them right back into play right away. So it comes in handy. Or also sometimes we may have some Vespiquens or Combees prized, and we want to begin attacking with them, so we can, but let's say I have a Vespiquen in hand but I'm all out of Combees, I can get a couple Combees out, and vice versa with that. So just very versatile in this deck. Sometimes we don't even want to play it though, because we don't want to pull any Pokemon out of our discard pile, especially if we're pumping up Vespiquen's attack. So that's kind of it. We'll talk. I mean, I played 3 Level Ball, 4 Ultra Ball, 4 VS Seeker. We'll briefly talk about some of the supporters. Sycamore, you should know about. We play 2 of those, 2 Lysanders. Those are ones you should know about. We'll talk about the other 3 since I play on 1 of each. Playing Pokemon Ranger. Ranger helps in the Vileplume Jolteon matchup. Again, we can barrier break through it, but sometimes all we have left is Vespiquen. So, Ranger can help us with that. Also, Ranger is very helpful for Giratina. Probably our hardest matchup is Giratina Garbodor, any deck that has that. So that would be Darkrai, Giratina, Garbodor. It's not unbeatable, it's just a little bit tougher. Because if they play Garbodor, they can keep us from using our Yanmega, so then we have to switch over to the Vespiquen. And if they use a Chaos Wheel, then we can attach any DCE or play a Stadium. So one Ranger helps out with that so that we can at least get back into the battle. One thing you do want to notice is if they are playing Garb, you want to try to Lysander Trubbish up and take it out with whatever you can before it becomes Garbodor. That you do see Hex Maniacs played sometime, but they're not a big deal because you usually can just transfer over to a Vespiquen for 1 turn and then come back. They usually need to draw after the Hex Maniacs, so it's not like you see a lot of chain Hex Maniacs, though it is possible. Play 1 Giovanni. Giovanni's really clutch in this deck. I love it. It is our 8th draw supporter, you could say. We got 4, 5, 6, then Judge is 7, and then Giovanni is our 8th draw supporter. So, and there have been times where Giovanni has come in where I've only had like 1 card in hand and I top decked the Giovanni and I was able to draw it up to 5, back up my hand back up to 5. But the key thing we use it for is the extra 20 damage. Because a lot of times we may be missing a knockout by just that 20 damage. You know, maybe we need to hit 170 and we only have 13 Pokemon in the discard pile. So Vespiquen's going to hit 150 and then with Giovanni 170. It's just really solid. And it's a card you should always be thinking about if you're playing this deck. How can I use it? Because it's just really good. A lot of times you Sycamore away early and then you VS Secret later. Judge, it's another really good card in this deck, though I kind of prefer, at one time I played 2 Judges and no Giovanni, but Judge and kind of do the same thing. However, late game Judge is better for us because if we're ahead in prizes and we end ourselves down to 2, it makes Yanmega Break's ability not as strong. So anyway, that's the case with that. But Judge allows also to put some disruption early game against our opponent's hand, and also puts us so that we have 4 in hand so we can use Yanmega Break. A couple things I should warn you about is if you get your bench real full, you probably don't want a Sycamore, especially if you're trying to attack with Yanmega Break. After a Sycamore, you've got to get 3 cards out of your hand, and if your bench is full, it's going to be kind of difficult to hit that. So what I recommend is if you got a pretty empty bench, you want a Sycamore and get through your deck pretty quickly, so that you can, and you should be able to get your Yanmega Break, or you'd be able to use your attack by getting down to 4. But if your bench is really full, let's say you had to use both Shamans because you started out poorly to get you going, and let's say you Vespiquen and you've got a Yanmega ready to go and maybe a Yama, you want to be careful. N might be a better route to go, or Judge might be a better route to go, simply because if you're trying to attack, you want to hit the 4. If you play Sycamore, there's a good chance you won't be able to get your hand down to the 4. So be careful, be mindful of that. Those are a couple things I would point out. Other thing is I know Karen probably really hurts us, But the thing is, you want to remember is there's not a lot of people playing Karen. Even in decks like Mega Ray and Mega Guardy, where a Karen it could be useful, they've switched over pretty much to Brock's Grit. I know I have in those decks when I play them. I don't use Karen except in expanded. So just be mindful of that. You may, if they do play Karen, you're going to want to focus more on the Omegas, and you should be able to actually use your you might be able to use your unknowns multiple times and get them back in, which then might get you into a Sycamore, which would be able to get rid of more Pokemon quickly and get the Vespiquens back into the battle quickly. So anyway, guys, that's the deck profile. I am going to be putting some videos up showcasing this, kind of going through the analysis for you. But until then, I hope you enjoyed this. Hit like, subscribe, and be on the lookout for some videos that are coming out. I'm back, and I've got some stuff in store. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. We're at 850 right now. So hit like, subscribe if you haven't, and until next time, we'll talk to you later. Bye.